Me today is retired Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, a former IDF spokesperson. Lieutenant, thank you very much for being here with us. Your reaction to this tragic discovery, is it a surprise?
Well, good afternoon, noontime in your area. We're at the end of a very, very sad and emotional day in Israel, where we are now going to bury 6 more civilian hostages that were alive for 310 days in Hamas captivity and then were executed in cold blood by Hamas terrorists as they understood that Israeli soldiers were approaching. I don't think it comes to a surprise to anybody. This is a direct continuation of the atrocities of the massacre of October the 7th. It is the same type of cruelty that we have seen before October the 7th and after October the 7th. I think that people are mostly in shock and so frustrated by the fact that they were so close to perhaps having the option of coming home alive, and now, sadly, Israeli families will have to bury them instead of having them back at home alive. Very tense situation, as you said in the beginning, tense political situation. We may see consequences, political consequences, or a different course of action of the Israeli government. We'll see how hard the political push is and how big the demonstrations are. Maybe that will affect. But at the end of the day, when you take stock of everything, Israel is in a very, very challenging position. Canadians don't know that we're fighting on 3 fronts simultaneously. Today, more than 40 rockets and missiles were fired from Lebanon. Today, 3 Israeli police officers were gunned down by Palestinian terrorists in Judea and Samaria, what you would call the West Bank. And yesterday, we had 2 explosive vehicles that just by miracle didn't kill lots of Israelis, only wounded 3 security personnel in a Jewish community in Judea and Samaria. So there's a lot happening, but all of the attention, quite understandably, goes towards this tragedy, but there's a lot going on.
That's right. What could this mean for the remaining hostages? Does it diminish hope for them that they could still be alive?
Well, on one side, it gives more hope because these 6 hostages were alive for 310 days before they were executed, which indicates that Hamas has control over the hostages, that Hamas knows where all of them are, and that Hamas actively controls the fate of these hostages, and that can be seen as something positive, and it can bring hope to families who are eagerly yearning for their loved ones to be brought home. On the other hand, we understand how cruel the Hamas terrorists are, and we understand that the chances now when Hamas leaders and their supporters in Qatar and Egypt, they see the pressure in Israel, they see that Israelis are applying pressure on the Israeli government, one could assume that Hamas will take this as an advantage and they will harden their positions even more and they will elevate their demands even more towards Israel, not soften them. And what we probably will see is a hardened Hamas stance. So to summarize, yes, maybe a shimmer of hope. Hope is last to die. And the Israeli families who have been lobbying and crying and hoping and praying for the return of their families, they can at least draw some comfort from the fact that these 6 were alive until 2 days ago. But I honestly don't know, and I'm sadly not very hopeful for Hamas making any kind of deal to bring back hostages.
Now, we're out of time, but I do want to ask you this final question. Hamas has said that these hostages would still be alive if Israel had accepted a ceasefire proposal back in July. Your take on that?
Yeah, that's typically what Hamas would say, being a bunch of lying terrorists that are preying on the feelings and the sorrow of Israeli civilians and their families. I'm not surprised. Everything that they say is blatant lies. And when Israelis hear that and they amplify it in Israel, that of course is exactly what Hamas is looking for. This is exactly the Hamas game plan. It's psychological warfare. It is exploiting the suffering. But at the end of this fight, this war, no matter how dark the time is now, I am confident that Israel will be victorious over this evil. We will defend ourselves. We will get our people back, hopefully alive. And in a few years' time, there will be the beautiful laughter of Jewish kids playing safely in their homes again. And Hamas will be a thing relegated to the dustbin of history.
We will have to leave it there. Retired Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, a former IDF spokesperson, thank you very much for your time.